Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you all today. So, we're coming back to Spright Punk once again. I've been, of course, having a ton of fun with this deck, as always as ever, despite the fact that we are in the tier limits meta. Even now, I think that, being able to play a nice little brew like this is not only viable, but it's a lot of fun too. So, Spright Punk, where are we at with it? The list hasn't changed much lately. There are some things I've been considering in the main deck that I actually can talk about here, that I have been thinking about making some changes, but I don't really know, honestly, how well they would fit. Okay, so what I'm alluding to is, and a lot of people have asked about this, and I've been thinking about it a little more lately, is why aren't you playing Rising Carp? Well, the main reason I'm not playing Rising Carp, which to be fair would make Foxy Tune a bit more live in the deck as well. The main reason I'm not playing Rising Carp is not because of extra deck space. In fact, we'll go over this in a minute, but I have been thinking about making some changes here to the extra deck. But it's mainly for the fact that Sharakusai, I just don't really have room for it in this deck, and I know you're probably thinking, like, you really can't fit in one card, and I don't think I can, because here's the thing, right? This deck is a lot more tight on space than it might initially look. Like, it's pretty easy to see cards like Tuning and Prosperity and the second Dirno and maybe even Crossout Designator and think like, oh, surely these cards aren't all necessary, right? Like, surely these are just like consistency pieces. In the case of Crossout, consistency in terms of our plays going through and not necessarily part of our engine. But like, it's easy to think like, how necessary could these cards be? And these were thoughts that I had as I was thinking about maybe trying to include like a package with Sharakusai and Rising Carp. But honestly, I do think that cards like Tuning, like Prosperity, like the second Zero Note are more important than they might seem on the surface. And I find that to be true the more and more I play with the deck. I think what makes this deck work is how consistent it is, because Spright Punk's biggest weakness is that it very much relies on 2-card combos, right? And the fact that we just don't really have any 1-card plays means that we have to be keeping our deck as consistent as possible. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll say it, as long as this deck is viable. Assault Synchron, Assault Synchron, Assault Synchron, Assault Synchron. This is the key to this deck. This is the catalyst. This is what makes this deck work. You want to open Assault Synchron in literally every single opening hand of this deck. You always want to see this card. So I do think that the 3 tuning is necessary, and that's also what initially inspired me to play the Prosperity as well, is to see the Assault Synchron even more often. But the more I play with Prosperity, the more I like it just as an overall consistency tool. I mean, even beyond this deck being largely 2-card combos. Now, I say largely 2-card combos. You do have a 1-card play in the form of Amin / Itelli for Amin / Ogre Dance for Amin. We do have that 1-card play that ends on Psychic End Punisher, but that's the only thing it really ends on. So I'm just not a huge fan of making the 1-card play unless it's literally the only option, right? And I want to build my deck in such a way that we're prepared to add more to our end board than just Psychic End Punisher, because while this card is strong, it's not enough by itself to win the game. Just summoning it onto the field going first. This card is a lot more outable than it looks. It's still very strong, and it's still very difficult to get rid of, but it's not necessarily a be-all, end-all towers. It is a very outable towers, but I like that about it too, honestly. I think it's interesting that this card, the, unaffected ability, you can actually turn that off. I think that's really cool. So yeah, Psychic End Punisher is just a rad card overall. But more to the point, we want to end on more than just that because it is relatively outable. So that's also why we play 2 Spright Starters. As I've said in the past, you really only technically need 1 copy of this card in this deck, but I like having 2 because if nothing else, you can potentially open something like Amin plus Spright Starter, make your Psychic End Punisher, and then still be able to go into blue and then make some Spright plays as well. So there's also the case of Imperm. I think that's not necessarily a card I've been considering cutting, but I think maybe some people might think well, you don't necessarily need 3 Imperm, right? I honestly disagree, because I think that this deck really needs going second options. It's funny, I think just yesterday, if I'm getting my video schedule right in my head, I just talked about like my going second, I just had my going second video where we talked about playing cards going second. Imperm, as weird as this might sound, is my going second card. This is a card I think I absolutely want 3 of, just in case we do lose the coin flip. But of course, it also has that nice added versatility. It's still good if we happen to go first. We can just set it onto the field, and we're not at all sad to do so. Same with, of course, the 3 Ash Blossoms, 3 Maxx. That's a bit more of a given, though. As far as the extra deck goes, as I was saying, I have been thinking about making some changes to it. One thing I want to add, I want to find a good level 7 Synchro. But here's the thing, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at them for a second real quick. There's just not any that really jump out to me as what I'm looking for. I'd really like a good level 7 Synchro that's extender. Like Shooting Riser, I'd love if Shooting Riser Dragon was actually good in this deck, but unfortunately it doesn't do anything. And the main reason I want a level 7 Synchro is because as I've added a second Deer Note, I'm finding myself more often in a situation where, like, my real only play is to special Assault Synchron with a Deer Note on the board, but like, I don't have level 7 Synchro, so I can't sync, but if you special Assault Synchron, you can't do anything but Synchro. So, I really am, I don't know, and not just for this deck, but for other decks too. I've scoured level 7 Synchros so often. The closest thing that I might be on board with is Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, which is like, I don't know, it's actually not bad as a disruption tool, but I really would like an extender is the thing, right? Like, I'm really honestly looking for an extender. Although, to be fair, with the Black Rose Moonlight, if I have Zami in the graveyard and Deer Note on board, I can special Assault Synchron, that's a 7, and then I can just bring back Zami and sync for 10, go for a Baronne, or a Baron. That's actually not too bad. So, as far as what I would take out for it, honestly, probably Dharc. I've literally never summoned this card. Maybe Knightmare Unicorn. It's pretty rare that I summon this. It'd be one of those 2 cards. Probably just Dharc the Dark Charm or Gloomy. So, Black Rose Moonlight Dragon is a possible addition to the extra deck. But again, level 7 Synchros. The other one I was kind of considering was Wind Pegasus at Ignister, but I think I was going to go with something like this. I think I'd just go with the Black Rose Moonlight. I think that's just better. But if anyone has suggestions for a good level 7 Synchro option for the extra deck, definitely don't be afraid to post it in the comments below. I am definitely wide open to suggestions in general, but particularly for, again, level 7 Synchros. Definitely looking for another one of those. So anyway, today I have games from both the WCS qualifiers as well as just regular ranked ladders. So we'll be seeing a nice variety. Let's go ahead and break down the list card by card as always, and then look at those games. Playing 3 Maxx, 3 Spright Blue, 1 Spright Jet, 1 Spright Red, 1 Spright Carrot, 3 Assault Synchron, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Noh-P.U.N.K Amin, 2 Noh-P.U.N.K Deer Note, 3 Noh-P.U.N.K Foxy Tune, 3 Noh-P.U.N.K Ogre Dance, 3 Tuning, 1 Pot of Prosperity, 2 Emergency Teleport, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 2 Spright Starter, and then 3 Infinite Impermanence. So that's going to be our main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Cupid Pitch, 1 Chaosur, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, 1 Accel Synchro Stardust Dragon, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign Chengying, 1, oops, I skipped the best card, in my opinion, in this extra deck, 1 Second Punisher, 1 Gigatic Spright, 1 number 38 Hope Harbinger, Titanic Galaxy, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Dharc the Dark Charm or Gloomy, 2 Spright Elf, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, and then 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avramax. So, there is our list. Now let's look at some gameplay. Alright, let's start with the WCS qualifier games, because these should be the last 2 on the channel at this point. This first one, I actually wrote it down, so this one should be against Tier Limits. If I did indeed write that down correctly. Looks like we're going to be taking the first turn, and it's not a bad opening hand here. We are missing Assault Synchron, because as good as Spright Blue is, we don't really have a way to get a level 2 monster on the board right now without the Assault Synchron. So I'm going to start with E-Tele for Amin, grabbing the Foxy Tune, pitching the Spare Amin for Deer Note, pretty standard fair play for this deck. Just using the pump line to go into the Chaos Ruler. That will not only allow us to excavate, but then also we can use Dyrno to bring back that Amin. So again, if nothing else, we do get to end on Psychic and Punisher, and we also have the Maxx and the Imperm for backup as well. As I mentioned before in the deck profile, this is sort of our one-card combo to getting the Psychic and Punisher. But ideally, if I can pull an Assault Synchron, not only can I go into even like more plays, like making more synchros, but I also have a Spright Blue, so I can pretty much just make like anything I want for my extra deck. So definitely looking to excavate. We have 5 chances to do so, so not bad odds at all. And there is the Assault Synchron. Look at that, we even found 2. It's actually really good that we found 2 because we actually didn't have another Dharc monster in the graveyard to really like banish for Chaos Ruler. If we didn't find another Dharc monster, we could have made something work by using Spright Blue, right? Like we could have potentially just gotten this in the graveyard somehow before we needed to banish for Chaos Ruler, but we milled a spare Dharc monster, so it's all good. I'm going to especially Assault Synchron and the Spright Blue while I have a level 2 monster. I'm not going to continue the Spright line for now. I'm just going to go ahead and sync for level 10, going into Baronne. Now Chaos Ruler is going to activate, banishing Foxy Tune and the spare Assault Synchron to bring itself back. Now we can sync Amin and the Chaos Ruler for and Punisher. Because it left the field after being summoned by its own effect, Chaos Ruler gets banished from the field. Because Chaos Ruler is banished from the field, Assault Synchron banishes itself from the graveyard to bring back Chaos Ruler, once again summoning this card for the 3rd time this turn. Now I'm going to special summon the Spright Jet, grab Spright Starter with it, and now we can go into Gigantic Spright. We don't need to do any more Synchro summoning, so now we can afford to be 2 locked. I think one of the things that people wonder about how this deck works is like, how does the Spright line like mesh with the rest of the archetype? Like, wouldn't it 2-lock you? And again, the key is just to not 2-lock until after the rest of your plays, which is not difficult at all to do. So I already got a very solid end board here, but I can make it even a little bit better. I technically should have done the red and the carrot in the opposite order. Like, I should have put the carrot in the zone that Elf points to, just to link it for IP Masquerena. Arguably, I think going into this board state with red instead of carrot would be slightly better. It's not going to really make a difference in this case because 1, Elf can just bring back red as soon as I get priority during my opponent's turn. 2, I have an Imperm, so I already have an additional monster negation if I need it as well. So it's only on field though, it's not as strong, but yeah, this is like a pretty standard fair. I mean, not necessarily standard, like obviously we didn't get disrupted, so that was pretty nice, but this is an ideal turn 1 end board. If you have access to all your engines, you can end on something really powerful like this. So, alright, so the opponent's going to start with the Mudora, pitching Agidale. I'm going to use Spright Elf to get back red because I definitely do not want that Agidale effect to resolve. Opponent's got a Havness for us. I'm going to go ahead and fire off Maxx, which will get me 2 draws from this chain link. So, very glad I waited on Maxx Yeah, glad I waited on Maxx because now we get to draw for 2 cards. Like, if I had just chained Maxx to Mudora, then my opponent could have... Well, actually, they couldn't have chained Havness. But if I had then used Elf after Maxx, then my opponent would have chained Havness, and I wouldn't have gotten that extra draw. So, again, I talked about during the last turn that when priority is passed to me during my opponent's turn, the first thing I want to do with it is special summon Spright Red. I do think that is a priority to get it on board as soon as possible to negate a monster effect, like ideally the Agidale, but as we can see, our opponent managed to mill not only Heartbeat, but also Crime, like a trap card to get back with it, so they get to chain block their Agidale, which is definitely going to be really, really annoying. But at the same time, not the end of the world. We still have our negates, and our opponent actually manages to find a Gravekeeper's Trap as well, which is also fairly annoying, but... Alright, so yeah, Heartbeat's going to get back the Crime. I'm not really worried about the Crime. I'm worried more about just stopping my opponent here. So, thankfully, they actually whiffed pretty hard. They get the Scream Search, but that's it. I mean, they have some Shufflers and a Snow, but they don't have tier limit monsters. So, I'm going to actually Ash Blossom the Gravekeeper's Trap Search. That looks really weird, but the reason I do that is because I don't want my opponent to have access to a rank 4 for free. I definitely do not want them to potentially Zeus me. So they do have access to the Snow in the graveyard, but if they activate it, it's going to cost them like pretty much all the resources out of their graveyard. So that's definitely what I would like to happen if my opponent wants to be that committed. Opponent's going to summon Merly. It's pretty clear they're just trying desperately to mill a tier name, so I'm going to use Imperm to stop Merly. Note also that, like, we've been disrupting our opponent very consistently. I have not used the effects of any one of these monsters on the field. That's just how much disruption this deck can offer, right? Like, that's one thing that I think is often underestimated because it's not part of the main combo line, but people will say, like, oh, maybe we should have less cards like Impermanent Ash Blossom and focus more on the combo. And I'm like, no, I actually want those tools, again, even if I go first, to have even further disruption against the opponent. I basically, with a deck like this on my turn 1, I just like inflicting maximum despair, as we've inflicted to this tier limit opponent here, and they have conceded just in the face of a board that I haven't even had to touch yet in terms of activating their effects. So, beautiful, love to see it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next duel. Alright, this is going to be the WCS game here. This one was against Numeron. Always fun. But, you know. The cool thing about Numeron is that they do allow us to go first, so we have plenty of opportunities to disrupt them, except this hand is not particularly fantastic. This is a hand where I will say Rising Carp would actually be very good. Having Rising Carp in the extra, and the... oh my god, I can never eat other one, the Punk that fuses, because basically the idea is that I can Foxy tune for Amin as I'm doing here, but instead of just adding an Ogre Dance here, I could add the one that lets you fuse, normal summon it, pay 600, fuse these two for Rising Carp. Rising Carp sacks itself to summon Amin and Deernote, and then I can sync for Chaos Ruler. So, yeah, you know, that would definitely not be too bad in a situation like this. But one thing I will say that I wanted to talk about earlier, about another reason why I'm not super excited about that, is that it's kind of niche, right? Like, it's kind of a niche case scenario. It doesn't happen to me often where Foxy Tune in hand is literally the only play. I mean, here you can see we still have Spright plays, and it's definitely not a bad line to go into at all. So, I'm thinking, like... The other reason I'm thinking it's not worth it is because, you know, it's only niche in a case where you open pretty dead, and in order to make room for it, I think I would have to take out a consistency card, which would just make my hands dead more often. Or more likely to be dead more often, and it's just like, you know, I don't want to hurt the consistency of my deck just to put in a card that's good when I'm not having good variance in that regard, if that makes any sense. So, I'm gonna let my opponent blow up the Imperm, I don't care, that's fine. Spright Blue is gonna grab a Jet. Didn't grab Jet during the last turn because we opened both of our Spright Starters, so there was no point to including Jet into the combo, really. So, Poet's going for Terraforming. I'm still thinking they're on tiers, honestly, at this point. I've definitely seen tier limit decks with Lightning Storm, even though, again, I'm not a fan of going second cards like that, but they reveal themselves to be Numeron Network, so it's a dedicated going second deck, which makes more sense. So, I'm going to sack the Elf with the Carrot. One thing to note about using Spright Carrot against continuous spell and trap cards is that you do want to negate and destroy them. Like, if I had sacked, like, the Blue, for example, on the Numeron Network, that would not have necessarily negated it on the activation. Like, they still could have activated the effect and resolved it. But I want to negate and destroy it, so I'm just going to pop off the Spright Elf there. Hood's got a Droplet, though. Droplet sending Droplet, and that is going to negate the Carrot, which means that the Numeron Network is going to get to resolve there. Alright, and they even throw on the Planet Pathfinder for good measure, but then they just concede. Now, that might look really confusing on the surface, right? But the reason that they conceded there is because they were not able to OTK in that turn, and they wouldn't have been able to do any damage at all, actually, because they would have battled... Well, that's not true. They could have done... No, they couldn't have done any damage. No, I think they could have done 1,000 with the Planet Pathfinder, because, like, the networks all start at 1,000. Spright Blue has 1,000 defense, so the first attack never destroys one of my monsters, right? And I have 3 of them, so the Numeron Gates would have to battle over all of them, because Planet Pathfinder can't battle over any of them. So that uses all 4 of their attacks, and they can connect for 1,000. I still think that was an early concede, though, because, like, they definitely still could have gone for the... Maybe they're not playing it, but the Infinitrack Link or even Appaloosa, it's just like, I don't know, they could have cleared my... I don't know, but I guess they didn't get as easy of a win as they would have liked. So let's go to our next couple of duels, which are going to be from regular ranked ladder. Alright, so this duel is going to be against tier limits once again. This one's very teched out, playing lots of Shaddoll... Not lots of, but, you know, they're playing Shaddoll cards, playing Mass Change, just the various high roll techs that you often see on Master Duel that I don't necessarily think are right, but, you know, hey. people are going to play what they're going to play. So we get to go first here. Here's Pot of Prosperity, banishing 3 cards, revealing Imperm, Ogre Dance, and Spright Blue. For those who are wondering what I banish off Prosperity, it's usually these 3. Although I will say I have been finding myself summoning Herald of the Arclight more lately. So I think instead of Herald, I'm going to start banishing the Hope Harbinger. So the 3 I would recommend to banish off Prosperity are Hope Harbinger, Dharc, and then Knightmare Unicorn. So going to be adding the Spright Blue here, as Assault Synchron plus Spright Blue is a full combo. The opponent's going to fire off a Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries for Spright Elf here. It's a little annoying, but it actually doesn't really stop my main plays here. This is going to be more inducive to doing that, though, this Herald of the Orange Light, which is, I guess, another tech my opponent's playing. They pitched an Agito alongside it, but thankfully I have this Ash Blossom in my hand to stop that. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Herald. I haven't seen anybody play Herald of Orange Light in Tiers lately. That's kind of wild that I'm seeing it here. I didn't even think about that, but I'm going to special Spright Red and just pass. So we went from having an ideal combo to not really having plays at all, and if I'd actually had the Herald of Arclight in my extra deck, I probably would have summoned it here. So I will say this was a scenario where I do wish I would have banished the Hope Harbinger instead of the Herald of the Arclight. But, you know, at the very least, we still have at least 1 monster negation, so we're just going to have to hope that's enough. Opponent's going to Foolish and Agito and try to activate the effect. I'm going to definitely fire off Spright Red. Again, Foolish, they're one of these kind of high rolly cards you really only see on Master Duel lists, or I guess best of 1 Master Duel lists, non-tournament lists, let me say it that way. And we managed to rip an E-Tele, although to be fair, we have a lot of ways to get to Amin in this deck that we could have top decked. Amin itself, E-Tele, or Ogre Dance. So, gonna add a Foxy Tune, use the effect of the Deer Note in my hand to special itself, pitching the Foxy Tune. Opponent's got a Calbeck for us to bounce the Deer Note, which would be annoying, but I haven't used my normal summon yet, so I can just tribute the Spright Red to tribute summon the Deer Note and continue with my plays as if my opponent did not disrupt me at all. Here's the thing too, right? My opponent might have actually seen, like, a Rhino Heart if they hadn't been playing stuff like Herald of the Orange Light, Winter Cherry, and Foolish Burial, and instead have been playing stuff like Reinforce of the Army, Foolish Burial Goods, just overall just kept the deck more consistent and not try to play so many high rolling cards. I think it's I don't know. I don't think it's bad to have, like, a couple, like, if you're playing, like, just Cyberstein, or, like, maybe just some Winter Cherries, or maybe the Herald of Orange Light, but to play all of these cards and Shaddolls and Mask Change too, you're really just asking for your Tier Limits deck to be a lot less consistent, which is exactly what happened to my opponent here. Now, you could make the argument that, oh, Lex, maybe they just got unlucky, but I do think that there is a key difference between, like, breaking because of variance and breaking because of deck choices, and my opponent absolutely bricked because of deck choices they made in this game. So we have one more duel to take a look at. Let's go straight into it. And our final duel for this video is going to be against Goatee. Or Fish, as it is technically pronounced, although if you look at the OCG translation, it was just directly translated as Goatee, but that makes sense because the pun doesn't really work in other languages. So anyway, we get to go first again. I'm going to open Prosperity, banishing 3. I'm trying to remember if I actually banished... Yeah, I started banishing Hope Harbinger at this point. Opponent's got an Ash Blossom for it, though. Not a problem, though. As you can see, we already opened Amin and Assault Synchron, so if that goes uninterrupted, that's going to be, at the very least, Baronne Pep Chaos Ruler on the end board, and we have an Imperm to go along with it. But if we can find a Spright Blue off the Chaos Ruler, then we're going to have such a better end board. But as soon as I summon the Deer Note, my opponent's going to activate the the Shade of the Goatee from their hand, banishing this Abyss Shark and one of their Goatee tuners, Zep, in order to summon it. They then get to target my Deer Note, which means it will now get banished when it leaves the field. That is such a huge disruption against me right here. I did not see this coming at all. Of course, I've played against Goatee and I've played against this card before, but this effect I've always read it and been like, that's such a weird niche effect, but here it absolutely... I don't know if it absolutely wrecks me, but it means I can't bring back Amin, which means I can't go into Pep, which is definitely a bit of an issue. The opponent also gets to bring back their Zep, which is also going to be an issue because it's, you know, my turn, which means they can Synchro summon. this is the first time I've ever played against Goaty, and they actually have plays like during my first turn, which is cool. I kind of wish the deck could do this more consistently. If it could, it'd definitely be a lot more powerful, and I'd definitely be more interested in it. But then they're going to use the level 8 Synchro to banish my Amin. This is so rough. This is actually one of those games that made me think that Moonlight Rose would not be bad here, because I could summon it, bounce this Goaty, and then have disruption for my opponent's turn as well. I wouldn't get a monster back because of Amin, but... and here the opponent's got a spicy Supe tech to go for a level 6 Synchro here. It's going to be the Avramax. Going to use the Imperm here because I definitely don't want my opponent to have even more access to fish tuners. So just going to go ahead and negate that. Opponent's going to flip their monster to attack mode, and things are not looking good for me. This is definitely the first duel I've had against Goaty where I really felt like threatened by them, as bad as that might sound. But yeah, I was like, oh, so this is what the deck can do. I've kind of been waiting for this moment, just to like play against Goaty and actually get wrecked by them. Because every other experience, they just don't seem to do much of anything. I feel so bad. I feel like I'm bullying them. But here it is. I wanted to show Goaty in action at their strongest at some point on this channel. So here they are. And this isn't even at their strongest. This is really just them, like, you know, having the upper hand here. But those turn 1 plays, on my turn 1 plays, from the Goaty player were excellent. So Take the Bait. I definitely think this is a Diamond 2 as well, if I recall correctly. So Take the Bait looks like it's well on their way to Diamond 1 with Goaty, and it's well deserved. They are an excellent Goaty player. So that's going to go ahead and do it for games for this video. Let's move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation. You do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.